Now live, I'm Robin Lundberg. He's Ryan Aselta. And Ryan, what was the most entertaining thing you saw last night?
Anything and everything at Madison Square Garden, Robin. From the game, the scene on the sidelines, you had Spike, you had Magic, you had LeVar Ball, all mixing it up. It was a fun night, and for a night, the Mecca was actually the Mecca last night.
It's a good example of the trajectory the NBA is on, right? So entertaining, both on the court and off the court, the histrionics around it. And it was a random Tuesday night between two middle-of-the-road teams, though it would be really nice if the Lakers and Knicks can get back to prominence. Of course, one of the reasons the game itself was so entertaining was the performance of Kristaps Porzingis, who is our adrenaline performer presented by Toyota. Let's go places. KP put up a unicorn-like stat line the way he stuffed the box score, becoming the first player in recorded history with at least 35 points, 10 rebounds, 5 blocks, and 5 made three-pointers in a single game, as the Knicks topped the Lakers at the Garden 113-109. Has KP done the impossible and made you feel good about the Knicks' future?
No, it's not impossible. And yes, he has made me feel good about the Knicks' future. He's clearly a unique and special talent. And I don't want to take away from what he did last night. He was phenomenal, though the bulk of that scoring of the 37 points came in the first half. I watched that entire second half. Porzingis had some times, Robin, and it was kind of concerning, trouble generating his own shot. He was looking to the refs for a few calls late in the game, settled on a few jump shots. When he takes the ball to the hoop, he's really, you can't defend the guy at that point. His type of size, his type of mobility, but his lack of being able to create his own shot at times was a little bit concerning. Exciting, too, to see, though, what he does for the team. He frees up a lot of space. If Frank Ntilikina can develop a jump shot in the space that Porzingis is creating for him, that's going to be a pretty formidable tandem, and my excitement level probably rise just a little bit more.
Yeah, when you talk about sports, the two most important things for me are management of the team, which is questionable with the Knicks, at least at the highest
Questionable
spot.
is one way to put it. Yeah, okay.
And then the talent level, and Porzingis is a generational talent. There's never really been anything like him, hence the unicorn nickname. I mean, he struggles at times, like you mentioned, but he is 7 foot something, and his final bucket was off the dribble, a finish going to his right. And he's the only player I think I've ever seen who has the ability to both get his own shot from the perimeter and protect the rim the way he does, because they were sending double teams at him from 18 feet away from the basket.
Yeah, and those double teams are what I'm saying, creating the space and the shots for other guys. If Knicks management, like you're referring to, can surround him with a couple shooters, that offense could really take off. Porzingis going head-to-head, of course, with Lonzo Ball last night. LeBron James had some praise for the Lakers rookie. Now, LeBron was watching the Knicks-Lakers game in the Cavs locker room before his game, and he praised Ball and the way he's handled the attention that has followed him and his family. LeBron said, "I love his humility. He goes out every time someone asks him a question. He says, 'This is not about me, man.' So, can I draw any parallel to my experience? I mean, of course, I guess when you're drafted to a franchise, they want you to kind of be the savior. Can he play ball? Absolutely. The kid can play ball." What do you think, Robin? Do you see any of those parallels that LeBron's referring to with Lonzo Ball?
Well, I don't think those two guys are very much the same, other than they see the court very well. I don't know how humble you can be if you're Lonzo when you walk into the arena with your face put on the Illmatic cover, which was kind of fly, I do have to admit. But it's not LeBron's comments that make me feel better about Lonzo. It's just watching him play basketball. I've been very impressed with him over the last couple of weeks because he is able to impact the game in numerous ways. He's blocking shots. He's getting out in transition and finding teammates on skip passes for three-point shots. The shooting is still concerning. I mean, he takes his jumper out of his pocket, right? But if he can score at an adequate level, he has a chance to be a really, really good player in the NBA. And if he can get even beyond that, he has a chance to be a superstar.
Yeah, I've been impressed a little bit, too, because I think he's responded well to his first bit of adversity. I know a couple weeks ago we were talking about Lonzo being on the bench in fourth quarters and back-to-back nights, and maybe that was a wake-up call. Maybe Luke Walton asked him to do a little bit more of the little things that you're referring to, not just score. He had 8 boards and 6 assists to go along with the 17 points last night. The shooting's going to come. He had 3 threes last night, so he looked a little better from beyond the arc. But I'm also impressed with the way he's handled the scrutiny. I'd almost argue, Robin, that he's under more scrutiny than LeBron was when he was drafted. The expectation level was there for LeBron, but LeVar Ball is causing scrutiny on his own son. He's the one who has to answer all these questions all the time, And so far, he's handling it pretty well.
I'd say he's under the most unique form of scrutiny.
Yeah.
I don't know if we've ever seen the scrutiny come because your father is this, out of this world sort of caricature. I almost said it the first time.
He's both. Yeah.
But when LeBron came to the league, let's remember he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. He was the chosen one. He was the only one expected to come straight out of high school and maybe be the next Jordan. I'm not quite sure there's ever been anything like that. It just happened to coincide with the beginning of the social media era, and Lonzo Ball's career starts right in the midst of that. Speaking of social media, Aaron Rodgers has been medically cleared. He posted the news on his Instagram and could be back on the field as soon as Sunday. Do you think it is wise for him to return? And how much different do you feel about the Packers' chances now?
Well, he has to return. This team's in a playoff hunt. He's the franchise player, the face of the Packers. He has to come back and give this to go. Is it smart? I kind of agree with what Tiki Barber said the other day. The risk of re-injury is pretty severe with this type of injury. What we saw happen to Tony Romo could easily happen to Rodgers. One sack, he lands on that shoulder, and the collarbone could snap no problem, and all of a sudden he's rehabbing the entire offseason to try to come back. This team's going to get a big lift. This is an MVP quarterback who they were 4-1 with him at quarterback before he got hurt. I just worry about it being a little bit too late. 7-6, a very crowded NFC. There's 3 teams at 7-6, 2 teams ahead of them at 8-5 in the playoff standings. The schedule, they get at Carolina, host a very good Vikings team, and then they could be playing for a playoff spot with Detroit at the end of the season. So he's got to give it a go. If he's not trying to come back, people are talking about Aaron Rodgers being soft, so he has to try.
I don't know if it's so much of a no-brainer. I mean, you talk about the NFC and how stacked it is, and then you reference how easy it is for him to be re-injured if he's driven down into the turf or the ground. And, I mean, he is their commodity. We've seen what they're like with him versus what they're like without him. It's so easy for me to say it sitting here, hey, sit Aaron Rodgers out the rest of this year. But I don't know if the reward for them is actually touching the Super Bowl, and the risk for them could be sending them into the depths of the standings for a long time to come.
Yeah, I wonder if a guy like Rodgers even weighs those different factors when making the decision or talking about it. I think he just sees, I'm cleared, I'm going to be on the field. We'll see him this Sunday. A former NFL star has made some disturbing revelations about his post-NFL health. Former 2-time Pro Bowl running back Larry Johnson told the Washington Post that he believes he suffers from the degenerative brain disorder CTE. Now, Johnson says he suffers from anxiety, paranoia, and self-destructive impulses, and claims he has demons urging him to jump off of rooftops. Johnson said, one is telling you to do it, one is telling you don't. One is telling you it'd be fun. He also compared himself to former Patriots tight end Aaron Hernandez. Robin, it's a very, very scary look inside the mind of a player, a former player. He's clearly suffering and maybe calling out for some help here.
Yeah, I mean, and when you're dealing with the brain, that's the scariest aspect of this to me. You can hear the name Aaron Hernandez, and of course, you think about some of the tragedies of his life and the atrocities he may have committed, right? But with Larry Johnson and all of these guys, you're discussing the decision-making process, right? We can sit here and say, hey, you shouldn't do that, or that is wrong. And what's really scary is your brain is what tells you that. So if that's not all going as planned, if those wires aren't firing correctly, you never know what the thought process can be. And it's just so sad when you hear a story about somebody who has a young child and somebody who you would think lived a great life and should ideally live a great post-playing career life, thinking about doing stuff like jumping off a building.
Yeah, this is interesting because you really don't find out about this until it's too late. We saw it with Junior Seau, which draws some comparisons to this situation. Interesting that Johnson is recognizing the symptoms, and that shows how educated these guys are getting about CTE. But these are the guys that the NFL needs to be reaching out to help. You know, the financial settlement to the families of those who have passed on from brain injuries is one thing, but these are the guys that are screaming for help. When you read this column, it's very, very deep, thorough, inside the mind of Larry Johnson. This guy needs some serious help, and he's carrying around, you mentioned his daughter. I mean, he's driving around his daughter at 90 miles an hour, not really knowing a whole lot what's going on. There's concerns there for safety issues that, were red flags to me. But this is the guy who is screaming for help. The league or some branch of the league has to connect with these players at some point.
Yeah, he says he doesn't even remember a couple of years of his career. And to your point about him knowing and realizing, I think that's because he probably knows something is wrong with him And the more we learn, he can connect the dots. But one place where you can't really fix an injury is the brain. And I think ultimately that's why we keep coming back to the same points. And ultimately that's why CTE and repeated head trauma is so scary and concerning.
And hopefully he can get some help real soon.
The NFL Network is the latest media entity to be embroiled in a sexual harassment scandal, as former wardrobe stylist Jami Cantor has brought forth a lawsuit naming 6 current and former NFL Network employees. As a result, the network itself has suspended current analysts Marshall Falk, Heath Evans, and Ike Taylor, while ESPN has suspended Donovan McNabb and Eric Davis, and the Bill Simmons Media Group has suspended its president Eric Weinberger, who were also named in the suit. To go over the implications, we welcome in our legal analyst, Michael McCann. Michael, unlike much of the Me Too movement, this is an actual legal complaint that includes 11 claims. What's Cantor's suit and how good is her case?
Sure, Robin. So you're right. This is different in that this has gone to the stage of a lawsuit, and the lawsuit alleges that Cantor was victimized by direct sexual harassment in terms of lewd text messages that included naked photos, as well as really outrageous comments that she retells in her complaint. In addition, she was victimized by a hostile work environment that, as a woman, she was subjected to disparate treatment, as she contends, and that it affected her ability to perform her work, and also that she was victimized by being fired for what she says are false reasons. The company, according to her, said that she took property, but she believes this was retaliation for speaking up as a victim of being harassed. And in some cases, really worse than harassed. Some of her allegations go beyond mere words to actual physical contact. So pretty damning allegations.
Michael, you write on SI.com that it's interesting that they didn't reach a settlement here. Why would you expect a settlement, and what does this mean for the case that there wasn't one met?
Yeah, Ryan, I would have expected a settlement before this became public, for the reason that it's so damaging to the NFL brand, particularly in this era where more and more victims of sexual harassment or sexual violence are coming forward and pointing out who victimized them, who hurt them. And the fact that the NFL Network didn't choose to reach some kind of financial agreement with Ms. Cantor prior to her making the specific allegations public, to me is surprising, because even if she doesn't ultimately win, this is really damaging to the NFL Network and certainly to the individual persons who have been accused, and also more broadly the NFL brand. So it's surprising in that lens. And then secondarily, it's surprising because if her complaint is correct, that she has actual text messages, that's powerful evidence. That evidence alone, this isn't he said, she said, here is a text message in which somebody sent me a photo of them naked, along with really awful things said in the text. If I'm a lawyer for the NFL Network, I don't want that becoming public. That alone is damaging. So that's what, to me, makes it surprising.
Michael, early Wednesday morning, sports broadcaster Lindsay McCormick levied a new sexual discrimination allegation against the NFL Network. In an Instagram post, she wrote, "In my last interview with the NFL Network a few years ago, the head of hiring talent said to me, 'If we hire you, do you plan on getting knocked up immediately like the rest of them?' Kudos to NFL Network for eventually removing this man from his position and for the actions they've taken this week." Michael, does this paint a picture here of a systemic issue at NFL Network?
Yeah, it could, Ryan. And I think it's maybe even broader than that, that perhaps in the sports industry itself, that this is an industry that, as we know, is dominated by men. And it doesn't require many of those men to do awful things, to paint a picture of really horrendous treatment of women in the industry. So to me, this is why the lawsuit is one way of raising attention to these issues, but it's really a broader problem, I suspect, that needs to be addressed through new industry standards, through broader discussion about these issues. And, because otherwise, if women want to become part of this industry, they suffer a cost, because they're going to be tarnished by questions that are sexually laden that men in the same position aren't faced with. It deters women from pursuing the industry. So it certainly reflects poorly on the NFL Network, but it also, to me, is a bigger issue, a bigger challenge for all of us in this industry that we don't see these things happen.
To that bigger issue and the systemic problems possibly, is that why Cantor's lawsuit is at the network itself and not the individuals?
Yeah, so a couple reasons. One is that her argument is that it was a hostile work environment, and the environment itself, the responsibility for that environment falls with the NFL Network. Another reason could be for purposes of likely recovery, financial recovery. If she wins and is awarded many millions of dollars, it's more likely that the NFL Network would would have the immediate wherewithal to pay it. We don't know the financial status of all of the individuals in the case. Presumably, they're doing well. They were former players, but we know that with individuals, it's always harder to measure how much money they have and their ability to pay off a judgment. So partly, I think it's because the lawsuit is constructed as a case of this was an environment of awful treatment, sexist treatment, abusive treatment, really. I would even go to that level, given that there was actual contact, but also because the NFL Network has the deep pockets, if you will, to pay off a financial judgment.
Is there any chance any of the individuals named could face any criminal charges?
It's possible. It's certainly within the statute of limitations, according to at least her retelling of facts. Though I would say that that's hard, right? Because at that point, it requires a police investigation. It requires probable cause. It requires prosecutors believing that they would actually be able to convince a jury beyond a reasonable doubt of physical contact. We don't know. It's certainly possible. The civil standard is much lower. It's preponderance of evidence, more probable than not. So from this lens, this lawsuit it benefits by the fact that the standard is lower than a criminal indictment. Wouldn't surprise me if we see law enforcement take a look, but at this point, there has to be more than a mere verbal accusation. Law enforcement usually wants to see some type of corroborating evidence, whether it's another witness who can vouch for it, whether it's emails or texts. We'll find out.
Speaking to the criminal standard, we know innocent until proven guilty is there, but not in the workplace. Has a precedent been established to at least remove someone from the air temporarily upon an accusation?
It does seem like that is the precedent. Certainly the approach that the NFL Network and ESPN has taken. Whether other sports companies would take the same approach, we don't know. But I think in this environment, it's responsible on the part of companies to remove the person from the air and do their own due diligence and investigate and bring in witnesses and look at company email servers and look at any company phones that might have electronic messages on them. Look at social media accounts. Companies have to do this for one, that it affects their potential exposure to liability. But I think more importantly, it goes to preventing this kind of conduct from happening again.
Michael, before we let you go, I want to switch gears, ask you about a situation in New Orleans where a Saints season ticket holder has sued the team, requesting a refund of his ticket costs and attorney's fees. Now, he claims that the Saints players' protests around the national anthem have taken away the entertainment and intellectual enjoyment of the games. The fan hasn't attended a game since week 2. Now, Saints running back Mark Ingram responded to the lawsuit on Twitter, saying, "The one time we protested an anthem was an away game. After a team meeting, we decided to kneel as one before the anthem was played and stand united as one during the anthem." Good luck, dude. Michael, does the Saints fan have any kind of case here against the football club?
I'm pretty skeptical. Whether the game is at home or away, to me, is irrelevant. It's about the fact that when you go to a game, whether it's an NFL game or an NBA game, your ticket gives you a license to watch a game. And lawsuits over aggrieved fans that don't like calls in a game or don't like how players act, that's not what your ticket provides. Here, if you bought a ticket to a game and you were treated to a game between two teams that were scheduled to play, you got what you paid for. You may not be happy about certain aspects of it. That's not a legal harm. That's a fan harm. And I have a feeling this kind of suit won't go very far.
Michael, appreciate your insight as always. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Well, baseball's winter meetings are ongoing down in Orlando with a ton of big names on the verge of finding new homes. Let's bring in Sports Illustrated's Jay Jaffe to break it all down, courtesy of Toyota Let's Go Places. And Jay, the Angels have confirmed that newly acquired Shohei Ohtani has a first-degree sprain of his UCL in his right elbow. Of course, that's the ligament commonly repaired in Tommy John surgery. The Angels paid a hefty posting fee to land Ohtani's rights. They seem to be okay with this diagnosis here. How serious is this elbow condition for him?
Well, it probably isn't very serious. I mean, it's a grade 1 sprain, so you know it's obviously not the most major. It goes grade 1, 2, 3. Apparently, according to the league, none of the 30 teams were scared off by that. He received a PRP injection, platelet-rich plasma, which is commonly used to try to heal the UCL. Before undergoing surgery here. We've seen it work in other cases. You know, what comes to mind actually is Masahiro Tanaka, who near the end of his rookie season in 2014 with the Yankees was found to have a small tear in his UCL. He did not undergo surgery, had platelet-rich plasma treatment, and that has held. You know, we don't know the actual severity of it other than, you know, some bounding assumptions based on the fact that it's a grade 1 strain. You know, like any pitcher, he'd be a risk for Tommy John surgery, maybe a little bit more than others because we know he's got at least this. But I guarantee if you looked around the league and took MRIs of every starting pitcher's elbow, you'd find a lot of these.
Angels making some news this morning, Jay, as well. Reportedly, the team is interested in signing Ian Kinsler. How serious is the team's interested in Kinsler, and how strong of a sign is this that the Angels are serious about getting more competitive than what we saw in 2017?
Well, I haven't seen anything to really indicate the depth of their interest in Kinsler, other than they need a second baseman. They had the worst second base situation in the league last year. They signed Danny Espinosa. It didn't work out. Cumulatively, their second baseman were 3 wins below replacement level. Just about anybody they could get for that spot would be an improvement. And, you know, there's a lot of options out there. Kinsler would obviously be a trade. He's a guy who's 1 year away from the end of his contract here, 36 years old, coming off a down season, but still basically a league average one. They could also do other things. They could sign Neil Walker, who's another free agent, the former Mets and Pirates second baseman. Starlin Castro, who was just dealt for the Yankees to the Marlins, probably isn't going to play for the Marlins. He's just another guy who needs to be flipped. So they have options out there, but Kinsler makes a certain amount of sense for them as a short-term solution. You know, especially if they can get the Tigers to eat some money, you know, from that contract.
The Yankees, they've been busy, traded Chase Headley and Brian Mitchell to help cut salary to make room for Giancarlo Stanton. They're in a good position with the luxury tax. What more would the Yankees need to do to possibly acquire Manny Machado, and is it a possibility they could trade with the Orioles?
I think to get Manny Machado at this juncture directly from the Orioles, they would need to move one of those teams out of the American League East. There is no way that Peter Angelos is going to let Machado go straight to the Yankees without getting back just, you know, everything the Yankees have prospect-wise, including Gleyber Torres, who's going to be one of the top prospects in baseball coming into the year, and is a natural shortstop who can play second or third base. Machado is 1 year away from free agency. He is 99.999% likely to test free agency. So whoever's acquiring him is going to give up a lot of talent just for 1 year. It's not really going to give you the inside track to re-signing him, I don't think. So, you know, by that token, I don't think the Yankees are going to be heavy players in this. They'll check in, but you know, I think that they'd rather throw money at it when Machado becomes a free agent next winter.
Jay, with Stanton landing in New York, the biggest bat on the open market is JD Martinez, who's reportedly set to meet with the Red Sox. How good of a fit would Martinez be in Boston?
Well, he makes some sense for that lineup in that they finished last in the American League in home runs last year, which was fairly atypical given what a hitter-friendly park they're in. You know, he's a right-handed bat, certainly got a ton of power, 45 home runs last year. You know, a guy who Dave Dombrowski rescued off the scrap heap when he was released by the Astros a few years ago. That said, the issue here is, you know, it's not really obvious where he plays. They've got a full outfield, the Red Sox do, with Andrew Benintendi, Jackie Bradley Jr., and Mookie Betts. You know, I guess you could trade Bradley and move Betts to center field to accommodate Martinez and right, but he's a lousy fielder. If you want to slot him at DH, you've got Hanley Ramirez already parked there. He's making $22 million a year. Last year of his contract, coming off a subpar season, and really, I don't see how you're going to not eat most of that salary if you want to move him. Martinez doesn't have much defensive skill. You're not really going to want to put either of those guys at first base, and you still need a first baseman. I think it makes more sense for them to go after Eric Hosmer, to play first base for them, leave the outfield intact, or trade for somebody like whether it's Jose Abreu or somebody else, to fill the first base gap, because Martinez makes some sense, but he's not a perfect fit.
A lot of rumors that the Nationals are interested in signing Jake Arrieta to help round out their staff. Arrieta's agent, Scott Boras, has a 75-page binder on the former Cubs pitcher and is asking for upwards of $200 million. How would signing him impact the Nationals?
Well, I certainly don't think the Nationals are going to pay $200 million for Jake Arrieta. I don't think any team is going to pay for $200 million for Jake Arrieta, given the extent to which he's regressed from his Cy Young form over the last 2 seasons. If the Nationals are able to sign him, it gives them the best front 3 in the game in Max Scherzer, Steven Strasburg, and Arrieta. I think that would be a great rotation there. But if they're committing that kind of money, it lowers the chances that they'll be able to retain Bryce Harper when he becomes a free agent next year. And some people, I think, already view that as a fait accompli, that he's going to leave via free agency because somebody else is going to sign him for more money. Arrieta, as a Boras client, the Nationals have long had a very cozy relationship with Scott Boras, so it'll be interesting to see how this transpires, but I don't see them throwing Scherzer money or Strasburg money at Arrieta, given their limitations.
Yeah, hard to imagine there'd be much money left. Jay, in a recent article written by SI's Tom Verducci, an anonymous Astros player said the team knew what pitches Darvish was about to throw based on how he brought his ball into his glove. Now, Darvish didn't make it out of the second inning in either of his World Series starts. With this information coming to light here, does it hurt or help Darvish's free agent value?
Well, we'd actually heard this right after the World Series. MLB Network's Eduardo Perez, was talking about, he saw the tells in the way that the Astros were picking up his pitches, and the way that Darvish was using his glove there. And I think it's already been hinted that it was Carlos Beltran who broke the code. Has long been recognized as one of the best pitch tip decoders in the game. Although so was the Dodgers' Chase Utley. So I'm not sure what happened there. I think this probably helps Darvish because this is viewed as a fixable problem as opposed to say an arm injury or diminishment of stuff. It's something that frankly the Dodgers should have caught especially if it happened twice. I would think any team who's getting him, is going to be reviewing those videos and seeing what they picked up and listening to others in the game, talk about what they saw there. I still think he's going to do very well in the free agent market, with upwards of $100 million. It'll be interesting to see where he goes.
Clearly, the baseball hot stove starting to heat up. Jay Jaffe all over it as usual. Thanks for being with us.
Sure thing.
All right, in the NFL, the Saints find themselves on the verge of a playoff berth for the first time since 2013, and 2 of New Orleans' most productive players are rookies. I recently caught up with one of those rooks, Marshon Lattimore, who leads the Saints in interceptions this season and has been enjoying every moment of his rookie campaign alongside his #1 fan, his dad, Marland. Well, Marshon and Marland, it's been a big year for the Lattimore family. Marshon, you get drafted 11th overall by the Saints back in April and are now having a tremendous rookie season in New Orleans, playing yourself into the Defensive Rookie of the Year conversation. Overall, how would you describe your rookie year in New Orleans?
It's been a nice year for me, just being in that type of locker room, just being able to play with, Von Bell, Mike Thomas again, and having, 2 other players, Ted Ginn and Justin Hardy, we were from the same high school. So, just having that family type of atmosphere in there, is great. And, just all of us doing our thing on the field, it makes it even better.
Marland, walk us through your draft day experience. Your son gets picked by the Saints in the first round back in April. What was that like for you as a dad?
It was a relief because at least we knew where he was going. It was one phase that was over and done with, on to the next phase. And that's how we've been dealing with it, dealing with the whole process. We've just been dealing with the process in phases. Couldn't ask for anything better. It's a dream come true for me too. Just watching, how they had the starting lineups and see his face, and that Marshon, Lattimore, Ohio State is just, it's just surreal.
How about you, Marshon? You got to remember that day back in April. What was it like for you when you heard your name called?
I actually I texted Mike Thomas and told him to tell the Saints to come and get me. I'm ready to be there and ready to be a Saint. And sure enough, the call came through, and I was just excited. Just knowing I'm gonna be there, with family down in New Orleans. So, it was a great feeling getting called by the Saints.
What was it like for father and son when your name was called eventually on draft day?
With us, we've been through it all together. Outside of football, but especially with football, he's the one that put me in football. I've been playing since I was 7 years old, and even at every game, every game that he could come to. So, just being able to experience that with him and the rest of my family, it was a great feeling.
So, Marland, thinking back when Marshon was a kid, was there a moment for you that you thought to yourself, wait a second, he may actually be good enough to make it to the NFL one day?
It was always my dream for him to go, but I was coaching football. He was about like 5 years old, and I would have him run tailback on the scout team. He just ran a simple off-tackle play and took it to the house, and this was against 12-year-olds. Once he started seeing that, and once I started seeing him do that, I said, well, this is the start of something big. And his eyes lit up, and he was, the happiest thing. Even the guys today, when I run into him, they say, well, we already knew what he was going to do. So, ever since then, it's just been, the sky's the limit.
Marshon, I want to ask you about a few of your teammates. One of your teammates is also in the running for his own Rookie of the Year award. Alvin Kamara has been arguably the most exciting running back from your draft class. What is it about Kamara that makes him such a special back?
Man, he can do it all. He can run the ball between the tackles, run sweeps, all that, and catch the ball, out the backfield. And even that lining up at receiver, he's just a complete back. And, I enjoy watching him. I tell him, every time, just continue being great. He's exciting to watch. I'm glad we got him.
Saints roster has some great young talent like we've talked about, but your team's most notable star is playing at the ripe old age of 38 years old. Tell me about what you've learned from Drew Brees as he has your team in the playoff hunt in his 17th season in the NFL.
He's a great leader. Drew Brees is one of the best leaders. He's not real, talkative at times, but, once it's time to step up, and take over the team, man, that's what he does. It's a blessing, to learn from him, on and off the field.
All right, got to ask you, kind of might be a sensitive topic. You're an Ohio State alum. What do you think about the Buckeyes being left out of this year's college football playoff?
I knew that was going to happen, especially with them going up against Alabama, for that fourth spot. Everybody, loves Alabama. No shade or anything like that. But, that just is what it is.
Should they be in that college football playoff?
Oh, of course. I'm going to say that every year, even if they have 5 losses.
I know you guys are working together on the Gillette His Big Day campaign. Tell us about that and how that's been for the two of you.
It's been great just sharing this moment with him, from my first game and all that. To him even, shaving my beard. Just things like that.
Just having fun, messing around, joking around, lining his beard up, shaving, give him a haircut, tighten his fade up.
Marshon, you're not too cool to let your dad tighten up your fade for you? He's the one that's doing some of the work there?
Yeah, I let him get I let him get my beard. I don't let him touch my line now. I don't want to be looking like that. That's my biggest fear going ball.
All right, Marshon and Marland Lattimore, thanks so much for being with us, guys.
Yeah.
Lattimore having a big season for the Saints, Robin. Robin, did you get the new Tom Brady app?
I did not.
Yeah, listen to this. Maybe there's a reason why. Tom Brady's launched a companion app for his TB12 Method lifestyle brand. Now, For $19.99 a month, that's about, what, $200 a year, you can receive updates around proper hydration, pliability, cognitive function, and nutrition, among other things. $200, not really cheap on the app market, Robin. How much you paying for an app like this?
Well, first of all, is it a weight loss plan or a deflating plan?
It's a lifestyle plan, right?
Yeah, a lifestyle, because he's giving you all sorts of advice. That price is out of control. I mean, there are so many different things you pay on a monthly subscription that are much cheaper than this. If maybe Tom Brady's trainer came to my house to help me, or he came to make me an avocado ice cream, or one of these things that Tom Brady preaches about, then I might consider it for $20 a month. But otherwise, that's an outrageous price point.
You know who this is made for? The Yahoos. The Tom Brady Yahoo fans, they just want anything TB12 related. There's too much free app information out there on this topic that you can get out there without shelling $200 a year. And remember, this is the same company, same guy who sells $99 pajamas for men and says that the Under Armour pajamas that help you recover as an athlete while you sleep.
Oh, I didn't know.
You don't have those?
I don't wear pajamas. I wear shorts and just go to sleep.
We're not going to go there. I don't know what you're wearing in bed. I certainly am not wearing.
What's wrong with shorts? Like basketball shorts?
$99 pajamas, not happening. $200 app, no way. All right, that's going to do it for this Wednesday edition of SI Now. Be sure to check back with us tomorrow, Thursday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern. And be sure to stick with us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook throughout the day.
I just got an alert from Tom Brady.
There it is. How much?
He just raised the price.
Yeah, $21.99 a month. See ya.